Hey, what's up, universe? It's 3:39 p.m. on Monday, June 26th, 2023. Uh, it's been an interesting, weekend and today, primarily just from the thoughts that have been coming up, and there's a lot. I feel like I could probably talk for hours, and so part of the reason I haven't even made a video is because I'm still digesting and processing and looking to distill this this thing that feels really large to like bring it all together, because there's all of these little things that have been coming up, and I feel like I'm really close to being able to like tie things together. So to give this some context, right, to put this together right now, through the gentleman that's with the IEEE, I got turned on to a podcast about AI. So I listened to a podcast, which led me to, the two hosts of the podcast, and I connected with them on LinkedIn. And then through one of them, they just recently posted over the weekend, a link to a Munk Debate, where four of the top, really bright minds in AI had a debate. And the question was whether or not AI poses an existential threat to the human species, basically. Could this technology cause an extinction level event, basically? Or perhaps entrap us or disempower us in such a way that we can't get back to our current state of agency as a species. And so there were two panelists that were pro and two that were con. And this particular debate, it was like an hour and 45 minutes. It inspired so much in me. The whole question of whether or not it's an existential threat became a back burner issue to me, because other things came up. Things around relationships and things around fear, things around our own species and our consciousness and unconsciousness, that each of us possesses, and then that also as a collective, right? Our collective consciousness and our collective unconscious. That's always been really the biggest thing, one of the biggest things for me and AI, is that it's an art, right? It's artificial intelligence. It's man-made. It's not organic. It's not from nature, so to speak. It's artificial. Regardless, though, it's still an art, right? So it's an expression of us and of the human. It's an expression of the human species. It's like us, right? As best as we can make it. And so if at the end of the day, one of the main goals, if not the main goal of AI, is to see if we can develop consciousness, right? Or that kind of a thing, then if we extrapolate that all the way out, then there has to be, in my mind, in this world that we experience with these three dimensions and all of the manifest that come from that, meaning that all of the number theory, all of the qualities, which I'll get into that here in a second, there's a literal play of nature. There's principles going on here. So if we've created consciousness, or the appearance of consciousness, then there also has to be the underbelly of that, the opposite of that, the unconscious, right? This is what we currently call the hallucinations of AI, or the ChatGPT making things up. But it's not even that necessarily, and it's not that it's doing it intentionally, right? So that's the unconscious byproduct. But it's things like that, right? So can we seriously escape that? It's my belief that we cannot code away unconsciousness, nor is it my belief that we can code our way out of the current state of the human condition. So in my mind, it is my belief that whatever we create as far as artificial intelligence and a consciousness, whatever that kind of looks like, then it's going to have the same qualities as us, meaning it's going to have beautiful, benevolent, capabilities and characteristics and altruism, and it's going to have mistakes, and it's going to have things that it didn't necessarily intend to have happen, right? The best, the pathway to hell is laid with good intentions, right? And so I don't see the technology. As an artist, I'm having a very difficult time seeing the separation between the creator and the art. How can that be? So because of that, how can we not just by virtue pass along our own traits into the very thing that we've created? Especially when we're going for the aim of consciousness or a replication as best we can of that. And so to me, I'm like, well, I know for myself, my fear comes having a technology as asymmetrical as AI that has the complete capability of having unconscious things that we don't understand and that it doesn't understand, but yet they play out, like they manifest. And I'm like, well, see, I don't know, like that to me is kind of like, well, until I get myself figured out, I can't really expect, things in a relationship or things that I create to be the purest form or their highest form until I do a lot of my own personal refinement, my own inner work, right? So the relationships, so to bring it back to myself, so the relationships that I've had, at different levels of consciousness have had different characteristics and different traits and different experiences and different outcomes. So the concern really with the debate was, what could this pose an existential threat? And, I do believe that it's possible, for sure. Now, really, to me, though, that was inconsequential, because the more important thing is how it could become an existential threat is the very thing. To me, AI is a great canvas for us to get reflected back about our own collective unconscious, our own unhealed things that we've collectively denied or made wedge topics, unresolved paradoxes, not seeing ourselves in the other. And I know I'm saying we, but I think that there's just a trillion examples that I think that one of those we could all find one or two to identify with. We see it, the division. So what came up for me then too was just naturally what I had been talking about like the creation triangle relationships, because when I was watching this debate, I was like, neither side is right or wrong. You know what I mean? I was like, I could totally see myself on both sides. I was like, this person's got a totally good point, that's valid. This person's got a totally good point, that's valid. The thing that I didn't like about like debates and things like that is that it's always like, well, it's one versus the other. One has to be right? And it's like, no, dude, why can't they both be right? And we find the synthesis between the two. We find the unity between the two because both of them are right. Like this whole idea that like there's right and wrong, it's like, no, there's things that need to be considered, and there needs to be a synthesis, right? And so this got me, this book of the Beginner's Guide to Constructing the Universe is, I've cried. I started reading on the number 5 and the number 7, and I've cried both times for both numbers, just out of the philosophical representation. And like it's this, oh my God, these inescapable principles of nature, and it's not like I'm not trying to escape them for any one reason, but it's demonstrated. And that's where I'm at right now, is looking to connect with these and tie this all in so that I can illustrate these things that are firing off in my brain. But to go back to like the division part real quick, like say with the number 5, the thing that is interesting, right? So like you have the Fibonacci sequence, and in this chapter, I'm just going to quote this. He goes, when we cut any line, we think we have produced 2, a dyad, but dyads represent illusions, because it's talking about the golden ratio, right? So you have a whole, right? So right now we have the whole would be AI, and the division is it an existential threat or not? And it's like, well, that's not really the problem, so to speak, right? The whole of AI is what we're talking about, really. We're talking about our relationship. In my opinion, that's what it comes down to me. Our relationship to AI, which then, since I believe AI is a great canvas for our consciousness to be played out, really for me, it comes back to what's our relationship with ourselves, you know? But let's go back to, the more concrete part here of the debate. So the whole is AI, and is it an existential threat? So we have this apparent division of pro and con, but that's not really how it is. There needs to be, in a golden ratio kind of a thing, it's a consideration, right? Like I was saying, there's things to be considered, and then there is a synthesis between those two things to keep the relationship of perpetuating, you know what I mean? To perpetuate that relationship. So take, like, as an example, the human body, right? If you take a measurement, an average amount, this again from the book, you'll find that the navel is at that golden ratio part where it divides the whole, which is the body, but there's a proportion, and one side is longer than the other. And the same thing with our elbow to our fingertip. The wrist, I believe, right, divides that at a certain ratio. And so ratios are relationships. So it's like everything is a relationship. So I didn't enjoy, and I never enjoy this us versus them, right? It's never us versus them. It's us versus the situation. And the situation is, in my mind, the fear around whether or not we create something such as AI that can pose an existential threat. And so to me, that all comes back to what are we bringing back to the relationship? And it's very obvious that there is fear present, and I can appreciate that. I have a certain level of fear around this too. Yet, having gone through what I've gone through, I also understand how fear and that vibration impacts my reality. And vibration can get gotten into with the number 7 as well. Like I said, there's so many things that are in, like, natural principles. Like, you can see it played out in everything. And it's like, okay, it just really goes back to that idea of relating. It's all about relationship, and it's all about vibration, and it's all about how we build our now. And I'm just like, there's more than just my own kind of musings and speculation. Like, there's natural, like, in nature, like capital N nature, like, phenomenon going on, and I'm just working on putting that together. So I've been talking for a minute. I appreciate you giving me the space and the time. I'm obviously pretty excited and animated. There's a lot that's been firing, like I said, over the last probably 2-3 days, and it's been something AI has been really conjuring this up for me for months now. And I feel like I'm just close to being able to, like, tie in some other things. So I'm feeling some excitement and emergence around that. All right. Thanks for being here. Thanks for journeying with me. Thanks for giving me some time and space. All right. I love you guys. I'll talk to you later.